I'm holding it right now. I'm scared to drop it, but I'm terrified to keep touching it. It doesn't look like a normal subway pass. It's long, gray, and warm. It feels like dried leather, or maybe cured skin. It smells like old blood and ozone. There is text printed on it, in a font that looks like it was branded into the material with a hot iron. It says, Passenger, David. Status, unpaid. And at the bottom, collection date, today. I don't know what happens when collection starts, but the lights in my apartment just flickered. They didn't turn off. They turned a sickly, sulfur yellow. And from the hallway, I can hear a sound. Thump, drag, thump, drag. If you are reading this, and you find yourself on a subway car where the lights turn yellow, do not close your eyes. Run. This started yesterday, Tuesday night. I worked downtown. By the time I clocked out, the city felt dead. It was that heavy, wet kind of midnight where the streets are empty and the air smells like cold rain. I just wanted to get home. I ran down the subway stairs, swiped my card, and caught the express train just as the doors were closing. I stepped into the last car. It was completely empty. I love the empty cars. No tourists, no noise, just the hum of the engine. I sat in the corner seat, the one by the window, and let my head tip back against the glass. The train lurched forward. The rhythm was hypnotic. Click-clack, click-clack. The gentle swaying rocked me like a cradle. I told myself I wouldn't sleep. I just needed to close my eyes for a minute. Just 60 seconds to rest my burning eyes. I watched the tunnel lights streak by, blur, black, until they faded into nothing. I drifted off. I don't know how long I was out. It couldn't have been long. But I woke up because of the cold. It wasn't a draft. It was a deep, biting chill that felt like I was waking up inside a meat locker. I sat up, shivering, rubbing my arms. The air tasted metallic, like I was sucking on a penny. Jesus, I whispered, my breath fogging in the air. I looked around, and that's when the feeling hit me. You know that sensation when you walk into a room and the hair on the back of your neck stands up? That primal, lizard brain instinct screaming you are in danger? It washed over me instantly. The first thing I noticed was the light. Subway cars have those harsh, white fluorescent strips. But these lights were dim. They were yellow. Not a warm yellow. A sickly, buzzing, bruised yellow. It made the whole car look jaundiced. I looked out the window to check for a station. Usually, even in the tunnels, you can see graffiti, maintenance lights, or the flash of other tracks. But outside the glass, there was nothing. I mean nothing. It wasn't just dark. It was a solid, blurring wall of gray, wet concrete. We were moving fast. Too fast. The tunnel was tight, barely inches from the glass. There were no brakes. No stations. Just an infinite tube of gray rushing by at impossible speed. I stood up, my legs feeling heavy. Hello. My voice died in the air. The car was silent. No engine hum. No rattle of wheels. Just a smooth, silent gliding sensation, like we were falling. I walked toward the middle of the car. That's when I realized I wasn't alone anymore. When I fell asleep, the car was empty. Now, there were 3 other people. I felt a rush of relief. Hey, I called out, walking toward them. Do you guys know what's going on? Did we miss the stop? They didn't answer. They didn't even turn their heads. I slowed down. The first passenger was a man in a business suit, sitting on the bench seat, facing the back of the train. He was sitting perfectly still, rigid. Excuse me, I said, reaching out to tap his shoulder. I stopped my hand inches from his jacket. The relief in my chest turned into ice-cold dread. He was facing the wrong way, but it wasn't just his posture. I looked at his neck, where the collar of his white shirt met his skin. There was no gap. The fabric didn't rest on his skin, it was merged with it. The cotton weave of the shirt dissolved seamlessly into the flesh of his neck. It looked like melted wax that had hardened. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. What the hell? I looked at the second passenger, an old woman clutching a purse. Her hands were fused to the leather bag. Her fingers didn't end. They just became the handle of the purse. She wasn't breathing. None of them were. Their chests weren't moving. They weren't statues. They were something worse. They were waiting. I turned around. I needed to get out of this car. I needed to get to the next one. Maybe the conductor was there. Maybe there were real people in the next car. I grabbed the handle of the sliding door at the front of the car. It was stuck. I jammed my foot against the frame and pulled with everything I had. Clang. It gave a few inches. A blast of wind hit me, smelling of stale water and rot, but I could see into the next car. It was identical. Sickly yellow light. Gray blur outside. Rows of passengers facing backward. But then, the door at the far end of that car slid open. Something stepped in. It was tall. Too tall to be human. It had to duck to clear the door frame. It wore a conductor's uniform, dark blue and crisp, with a cap pulled low over its face. It walked with a heavy, uneven limp. Thump, drag, thump, drag. It stopped at the first row of seats. It loomed over one of the rigid passengers. I saw its hand come up. The fingers were long, pale, and had too many joints. Like a spider made of bone. Through the glass, I heard a voice. It sounded like sandpaper rubbing together. Ticket. The passenger didn't move. The conductor waited a beat. Then, he reached out and placed his palm over the passenger's face. I watched in horror. The passenger didn't scream. They didn't fall. They just crumbled. In seconds, the suit, the skin, the fused body, it all disintegrated into a pile of fine, gray ash on the seat. The conductor reached into a pouch at his waist, pulled out a small broom, and swept the ash into a bag. Then he turned. He looked straight down the length of the car. He looked through the glass of the door I was peering through. I couldn't see his eyes, but I felt them. A cold, heavy weight pressing on my skull. He knew I was there. He started walking toward my door. Thump, drag, thump, drag. He was coming for me, and I didn't have a ticket. Panic freezes you for a second. But when you see death walking toward you, panic turns into fuel. I slammed my foot against the metal door frame. Bang! I gripped the handle with both hands and pulled until I felt a tendon pop in my shoulder. The door screeched, a horrible, grinding metal sound, and slid open just wide enough for me to squeeze through. I tumbled into the space between the cars. Usually, this is the loud part of the train. The wind, the clatter of the wheels, the danger. I grabbed the safety chains and looked down, expecting to see the blur of wooden railroad ties. There were no tracks. There were no wheels. Beneath the metal grating I was standing on, there was only a bottomless, silent black void. The train wasn't riding on rails. It was floating. It was hurtling through nothingness. I didn't have time to process the impossibility of it. The door behind me, the one I had just squeezed through, slid open smoothly. Thump, drag. He was coming. I threw myself at the door to the next car. Thankfully, this one was unlocked. I burst inside, stumbling into the aisle. This car was identical to the last one. The same sulfur yellow light. The same gray concrete blurring past the windows. But this car was full. Every single seat was taken. Dozens of passengers sat in rigid silence. Men in construction vests, women in nursing scrubs, teenagers in hoodies. And every single one of them was facing backward. They were staring at me with the backs of their heads. Help me, I screamed, running down the aisle. We have to get out of here. No one moved. As I ran past them, I brushed against a man's shoulder. His jacket felt hard and cold, like ceramic. I reached the end of the car and looked back. The conductor was standing in the doorway I had just entered. His uniform was pristine, but his hands were dripping with that gray ash. He raised a long, pale finger and pointed at me. Ticket, he rasped. The sound seemed to come from inside my own skull. I turned and ran. I ran through the next car and the next. It was an endless loop. Every car was the same. The yellow light buzzed in my ears like a swarm of hornets. My lungs were burning. I collapsed against the doors in the middle of the fifth car. I slid down to the floor, gasping for air. I couldn't run anymore. My legs felt like lead. Thump, drag, thump, drag. He wasn't running. He didn't have to. He was inevitable. I looked out the window, resigning myself to whatever was coming. I watched the gray concrete blur. And then I saw it. It was just a flash at first. A tiny speck of color in the monochrome world. Red. It was a signal light. An old-fashioned, rusted cage light bolted to the tunnel wall. It was flickering. As the train approached it, the blur of the concrete slowed down. The buzzing of the lights dipped in pitch. The reality of this place, it was thin there. It was glitching. I realized that was my exit. The only exit. I stood up. The conductor was entering the car. He was 20 feet away. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a ticket puncher. It looked sharp. I turned to the main subway doors, the ones that open onto the platform. I jammed my fingers into the rubber seal between the doors. Come on, I grunted, digging my nails in. Come on. The conductor was 10 feet away. Thump, drag. I saw the red light approaching. It was getting closer. The train shuddered. The yellow lights flickered and briefly turned white. I heaved with everything I had left. My muscles screamed. Slowly, agonizingly, the doors began to separate. An inch, 3 inches, a foot. The wind that howled into the car wasn't the stagnant air of the void. This wind smelled like garbage. It smelled like oil. It smelled like New York City. The conductor lunged. His long, pale arm shot out like a piston. His fingers grazed the back of my jacket. I felt a coldness spread through the fabric, like liquid nitrogen burning my skin. I didn't look back. I closed my eyes and jumped into the dark. I hit the ground hard. I rolled, my shoulders slamming against something sharp. Gravel dug into my cheek. The wind was knocked out of me. I lay there for a moment, gasping, waiting for the conductor to grab me, waiting to turn into ash. But nothing happened. I opened my eyes. The light was bright, harsh, white, fluorescent light. I blinked, tears streaming down my face. I smelled stale soft pretzels and urine. It was the most beautiful smell in the world. Hey, buddy, are you crazy? I looked up. A transit worker in an orange vest was running toward me from the platform. I was lying in the maintenance trough between the subway tracks. Get off the tracks, he screamed. The express is coming. I scrambled up. My body ached, but I moved. I hauled myself up onto the platform just as a train, a normal, silver, graffiti-covered train, roared past. It didn't stop. It just kept going. The worker grabbed my arm. What is wrong with you? You jumped off the platform. I saw you. I fell, I stammered. My voice sounded raw. I fell asleep. He looked at me like I was a junkie. Get out of here before I call the cops. Go home, kid. I didn't argue. I limped out of the station. I walked the 10 blocks to my apartment in a daze. I touched every brick wall, every parking meter, just to make sure they were solid. They were real. I got into my apartment, locked the door, bolted it, and pushed a chair under the handle. I went straight to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. I looked terrible. My face was covered in soot. My jacket had a handprint on the back, a bleached white stain where the fabric had been drained of color. It was a nightmare, I whispered to my reflection. Just a vivid nightmare. Stress. Exhaustion. I turned on the faucet to wash my face. That's when I felt it. A tickle in the back of my throat. I coughed. It felt like a hair was stuck in my windpipe. I coughed harder, gagging. It wouldn't come out. It felt like something was unfolding. I leaned over the sink, retching. I reached 2 fingers into my mouth, clawing at my throat. I felt something. It was wet and slimy and flat. I grabbed it and pulled. It kept coming. It slid out of my throat with a wet, sucking sound. A long, gray strip of material. I dropped it into the sink. It dried instantly. It wasn't paper. It felt like leather. It felt like cured skin. I stared at it, my hands shaking so bad I had to grip the edge of the sink to stay standing. There was text printed on it. It looked like it had been branded into the skin with a hot iron. Passenger, David. Status, unpaid. Collection date, tomorrow. I stared at the word tomorrow. That's today. That's right now. I grabbed the ticket to tear it up, to flush it, to burn it. But as soon as my fingers touched it, the lights in my bathroom flickered. They didn't go out. They changed. The harsh white bathroom bulbs buzzed and dimmed. And then, they turned a deep, sickly, sulfur yellow. And from the living room, right outside the bathroom door, I heard it. Thump, drag, thump, drag. He's here. And I still don't have a ticket. But wait. The text on the skin, it's changing. The letters are rearranging themselves. It doesn't say David anymore. It says, next passenger, you. I'm passing this on. It's the only way I can leave. The fare has to be paid, and now it's in your hands. Don't let your lights turn yellow. Don't let the air turn cold. Pay the fare. Subscribe now. Join the ride. Or wait for the drag. See you on the Express.